and I wanted to this is the first time that you're joining us are. So if you were and you did join us last week, please hang tight for a couple minutes, and we are going to be going through what a minor is, what is it for in terms of Diné College students, and then we're going to specifically be breaking down the silversmithing minor, right? What is the need for a Navajo silversmithing content specialization? How does the Navajo silversmithing minor satisfy that need that we do have for our nation? What are the tentative Navajo silversmithing minor course requirements? So we'll be going over that. And how can the community provide input? We are still doing in our development stage. So the information that you're able to provide in terms of the surveys, in terms of emailing us, in terms of calling us and giving us feedback will be most definitely fundamental in terms of our efforts to create programming that is not only driven by our community members, but is also gives our community members an opportunity to provide input on further developments. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at what is a minor. When we look at what a minor is a secondary academic discipline in addition to the major. So this would allow for our Diné College students who are majoring in biology, who are majoring in psychology, who are majoring in Diné studies, majoring in public health, any of those BA, BFA, or BS degrees that we do offer here at Diné College. It would allow them to select a secondary academic discipline. Now, normally these minors are 18 to 26 credits in addition to the major. And so you really need to focus on what the degree checklists in, talk with your advisor, pay attention to information that's going out to know exactly what credits are, how many credits are necessary. So when we take a look at this particular minors and why should students consider minors? Like I said, if you have multiple interests, even interests that don't directly connect to your main discipline, you can add a minor. And if you want to focus on a localized concentration that is directly related to your minor, but a subsector, this allows for you to do the general studies with your bachelor degree, and then you can actually focus in on how that bachelor's degree and these minors coincide, which is pretty interesting and a pretty neat way that we can start to expand our disciplines. If a student wants additional credentialing to strengthen their academic profile, right, they can minor in another field. So once again, these are just some of the sample bachelor programs that we do have here at Diné College. But when we take a look at our minors, we're really excited because this is something new that we're getting ready to roll out, and we're just want to make sure that we are gathering as much input as possible. So today, last week, like I said, we went over Native American Studies minor, which I'm super excited about to be housed in our School of Business and Social Sciences. Today, we're going to focus in on our Navajo Silversmithing minor. Next Monday, even though it's Martin Luther King Day, we're going to keep rocking and rolling with our minor Mondays, and we're going to discuss our Navajo weaving minor that's also planned to be rolled out in the fall of 2021. And then the last Monday in January, on January 25th, we're going to be discussing our Navajo Cultural Arts minor, which would stem from our School of Diné Studies and Education. So without further ado, I wanted to take a look at, our Navajo Silversmithing minor. And when we take a look at the history of silversmithing at Diné College, this really, this particular minor has a long history in terms of the creation of some of these photos. Back here, we have a wonderful archive of photos that is located in our Saley Silversmithing building. When NCC, Navajo Community College, was first envisioned, right alongside of it was these cultural arts classes. And one of the main emphasis areas that was brought to light was our Navajo silversmithing. And so we've had these wonderful instructors who come in to our institution from the community in order to really perpetuate these cultural arts, not just in terms of their techniques, right? Not just how to do silversmithing, but what does it mean to be a Navajo silversmith? And so here we have some wonderful pieces. This one is done by one of our BFA students, Carlin Ami. He was part of our first cohort. Right alongside of it, we have this very intricate, actually our community award for our first Navajo Cultural Arts Exhibit Week back in 2000. Gosh, it was 2000. 16 that we first held our Navajo Cultural Arts Exhibit Week. Delia Wanika, who's also now one of our current Navajo Silversmithing BFA students. We have a belt that was created by Miss Crystal Littleben, who was also former Miss Navajo and used Navajo silversmithing. After her work here with our Navajo Cultural Arts program, she went on to win Miss Navajo using silversmithing as a holistic well-being connection for our people. We also have this mysterious cup. Now, this could either be done by Mr. or Mrs. Littleben. We're not really sure. There's quite some debate for that. But this is one of our earlier pieces coming from the 70s. And then we have another piece created by Sam Slater down here. I mean, we could just go on and on with the quantity of pieces that have been provided by our students and just, you know, their exploration of this particular academic study. I do have a quick video for you guys. You can also access this video on our Navajo Cultural Arts website, which is www.navajoculturalartsprogram.org, to kind of help give you more of that background in terms of the philosophical and cultural connection that this type of academic programming that we've had at Diné College since its inception. And so here is Dr. Wilson O'Ronald Jr. Hopefully it'll play. Our internet's been a little sketchy today.
Navajo or Diné is about who you are coming from. Your art would identifies the uniqueness, intelligent capacity. My student, I say you were born with artistic mind. You have the ability, potential to be creative in whatever way you want. It's about learning about the knowledge of understanding the where you came from, why you are here today, direction we're going. Now has a spirit that makes it a living. We call it so that fire, we call it Grandpa Fire, Grandma Fire, and it represents our ethics to obey and to control our life. And through your artwork, there's one thing: you can't be lazy, you can't be stubborn, you cannot condemn your artwork. It can become your motivation, your interest, your desire, your comprehension. It can even really put your objectives and goals and your endeavors of life in order for you. It's a representation of your endeavor of life, why you have to educate yourself, the opportunity, the requirements in your life, how you will demonstrate your discipline to challenge, to learn, to exercise your skills and your abilities. So turquoise can give you a good spirit and power, image of motivation to be very enthusiastic. That's how you can educate yourself to be someone. Basically, silver represents our personality, our attitude, and it shields us, it protects us, it takes care of us.
So that's just to give everybody a little bit of an inkling of the impactful programming that has already been built within the cultural arts realm of Diné College since its inception. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we have some time to take a look at the need for a Navajo-centric silversmiths. When we're looking at the building of this minor, ultimately, these are some of the goals that we have for us. There's obviously a revitalization component, not just of, in terms of how to do the actual discipline, but understanding the Navajo way of life, understanding how Navajos out and sense the world. And so that's one of the things that we're really focusing on. Now, what I've seen from the past 5 years of being the Navajo Cultural Arts Grant Manager, and something that I foresee continuing with this particular minor, is a definite reconnection component as well. And we're talking about reconnection to family. There's so many individuals that go through our programming and our classes, and they never knew that they had a history of Navajo silversmithing in their particular family. And once they start taking these classes, all of a sudden these stories come to life. Did you know that your grandmother did this? Did you know that your aunt did this? Did you know that your father did this? We have these tools, and we start to see this reconnection that's taking place, not just to the family, but to the culture, language, stones and songs, prayers, overall general holistic well-being, right? And so that's been one of the most intrinsic rewards that I have seen coming from this particular type of programming. In addition to that, we have this concept of remembering, right? Remembering Native sciences, Navajo and Native American philosophies, government structure, arts, education, and how silversmithing and what we wear and how we present ourselves fits into every single realm of those types of disciplines. We also have a revealing and dismantling and reconstruction component that's taking place, especially as we have our BFA program. And when we talk about some of the requirements for this particular minor, it'll explain why we're adding these as options. There's a definite tension that exists between fine arts and cultural arts. And with our BFA in Navajo Silversmithing, we most definitely have broken down several of those barriers that have come in between that type of tension. And we're starting a real big dialogue in between those, what has many times been considered polarized areas of art. And then there's also the economic self-determination, everything from tribal economies to capitalistic economies and anywhere in between. How does trade function? I want to become a self-sustaining Navajo silversmith, but I also want to get my BA or BFA or BS degree from Diné College. And so we have, at least from our BFA program and from our Navajo Cultural Arts Certificate program, evidence of students who have now had their own thriving businesses, students who have LLCs, students who are successfully earning their livelihoods through the Southwest Indian markets. So it's something that most definitely will help contribute to their overall endeavors from an economic perspective. Now, when we look at the minor in particular, we're looking at a minor that will provide Diné College students with opportunities to explore Navajo silversmithing design, bench and studio practice, and philosophical understandings of silversmithing within the realms of fine arts, cultural arts, and Navajo ways of knowing. And students are going to do this through both research and project-based activities. This means that there will be classes that deal definitely with the bench and studio practice, as well as philosophy classes and general history classes. This minor will be housed in the School of Arts, Humanities, and English. It's one of the first minors coming out from that particular school, and it's intended for Diné College students from all bachelorette programs, BA degrees, BFA degrees, BS programs. And we're preparing for student enrollment in the minor program as early as fall 2021. Now, when we take a look at our proposed requirements, this will be a 21 credit hour minor. And when we were looking at it, we brought on several silversmiths, and I'll go over them in just one second to kind of give their input on what do we need our minor students to have experience and knowledge in, before they're let out into the world, or to kind of help them understand the overall significance of the Navajo silversmithing discipline. And so when we take a look at our core requirements, one of the core requirements that they will need is their 3D design. This is to give them an overall understanding of space, right? Design, materials, how to plan out projects. And then we have definite technical classes, right? These Introduction to Navajo Silversmithing, Foundations to Navajo Silversmithing. And in these two classes, they really focus in on our basic components and techniques, which include soldering, cutting, sawing, those basic working with fire, bending, those very stamping, those very basic techniques that are used within the Navajo silversmithing realm. Then we start taking a look at intermediate Navajo silversmithing, where they start to expand and start working with tufa, and advanced Navajo silversmithing, where they really start getting into the intricacies of their own designs. How do they start creating their own pieces? Now, when we get to the minor, they'll be required to take 6 additional credit hours. Now, that's 2 classes. And they get to pick what they want to emphasize in. When I was talking to our advisory committee, we understand that not everybody wants to go into business. And so maybe some people are more interested in, let's say, the philosophical components or the historical components, or maybe they want more technical practice. And so that's why we are leaving it up to the students to decide on perhaps what area they want to really emphasize in. And so we have the General Navajo Cultural Arts Philosophy class, which is a wonderful class because it doesn't just talk about silversmithing, but it integrates it with other cultural arts emphasis areas. It discusses songs, it discusses the cultural origins of the various emphasis areas that are discussed in the class. There's also the Navajo cultural arts selling practices, which was really important to our advisory team because they understand that when we talk about economic self-determination and being able to provide for yourself, having those foundations of knowing what a business plan is, or knowing how to conceive a business, or knowing how profit and cost ratios function. That's really important to understanding how they can start building up their livelihood from an economic perspective. And so that class focuses on that area. There's also the Survey of Native American Art, which I think is really important. And it not just only dialogues with what our advisory team is foreseeing for this minor, but also for general metalsmithing minors that are throughout the nation. The United States nation. And so this allows for people to start thinking about, well, how does silversmithing, how does metalsmithing, how does that dialogue with Native American art in general? And then we have an advanced techniques course, which is going to be the lapidary and inlay class. And so that allows for students to perhaps reach out and expand their knowledge in terms of how do they create their own cabs? How do they use scraps to the best benefits that they possibly can. And so this is the general outline that we have our proposed minor. Once again, it's 21 credits. It includes 5 classes that are core requirements, and then 2 classes which are up to the student's elective decision. So when we take a look at our resources, right, we have some fantastic adjunct faculty. We are currently in a transition stage where we've had several retirements, and unfortunately the passing of one of our silversmith instructors, the late Martha Jackson. But in the past, obviously Wilson Ronolith was fundamental in conceiving how the silversmithing program, the BFA program, and the Navajo Cultural Arts silversmithing branch would take place. And so not to say to replace them, but we've brought on these wonderful silversmiths today to help us, run the program here at the college. We have Teddy Draper, who comes to us from Canyon de Chelly area, and he's been just so driven in terms of, providing support, not just technical advice support, but being there for his students and seeing them as people and as growing, emerging artists. And so he's been wonderful. We have Lyndon Sosi, who really hounds in the concept and understanding of business, and he cares for the community, our Navajo community, just as much as Teddy. And his ability to provide that level of expertise to our students has been, without a doubt, irreplaceable in terms of our students' growth within the BFA. So we're foreseeing that to continue. We also have Miss Crystal Littleben, who is our NCAP coordinator. She runs her own silversmithing business, Leading with Fire, and she once again understands the holistic components of the Navajo silversmithing and how it dialogues with who we are as Navajo people. And then, of course, we have Anthony Goldtooth. His dad, Tony Goldtooth, also used to be one of our instructors, but he's since retired. But we still have Anthony, who's a heritage silversmith, and he adjuncts over at the Shiprock branch. So those are some of the adjunct faculty and silversmithing credentials that we have here at the college as of right now. Now, in terms of our facilities, we do have a Navajo Silversmith building, which we've been working on for the past, 4 years since I've been the Navajo Cultural Arts Program grant manager. We've been able to expand our silversmithing classrooms into various classrooms at the Saley branch, which includes not just our general classroom that we see down here, but it also has an advanced classroom with tufa casting and lapidary equipment, and of course a casting room. We are looking to expand right now in terms of renovations. We have a silversmithing area over at the Shiprock campus, and our project for this spring 2021 is to get that updated and renovated, making sure that we're taking a look at safety procedures and concerns, ventilation, to get that silversmithing classroom up to par with our Saley facilities. So I'm really excited about that. So why should, our students consider a Navajo silversmithing minor? Now, for me, it's a no-brainer, but that's because I come from a family of silversmiths. My husband's a silversmith, and obviously I run the Navajo Cultural Arts Program, and I've just seen such wonderful products and personal growth that has taken place. But if we start taking a look at data and analyzing, right, what this particular minor could provide to our students, we have areas of specialization that complement our Diné College bachelor's experiences and majors. So for example, if you're a STEM major and you minor in our Navajo silversmithing program, you're going to be presented with, the study of metals. You'll be able to make connections of formations of stones and veins and chemical reactions and melting points. There's just such a strong dialogue between our STEMs and our silversmithing minor that it's almost impossible to break the two apart. They just go hand in hand. So understanding that native science that we've had for generations and generations and how it dialogues very directly with our STEM majors and STEM programming is something that would be very interesting for those students to explore. In our SPSS, which is our social behavioral science and business majors, we have, if we were to bring in Navajo silversmithing minor, we could take a look at the holistic well-being impacts. We could also, I've had some wonderful projects come out of my Indigenous Research Methods class that really focused in on a chemical dependency and how Navajo silversmithing has either aided or unfortunately contributed to it. And so we've had just, this ability to bring these two components together and look at therapies, art therapies, and how they're beneficial to our Navajo people. We have the school dinner studies and education BA majors, and if we were to add Navajo silversmithing minor to that, metals as they relate to our traditional life ways. What does it reveal about us? Oftentimes when I'm out butchering, the sheep tells us a lot more about the people that I'm butchering with than they do verbally. And so when we take a look at that area of silversmithing, the stones in the metal will reveal to our people a lot more about us than we are in terms of forming them. And so that just very intricately and easily comes together. For our School of Arts, Humanities, and English BFA majors, right? And maybe they want to double up with the Navajo silversmithing minor. So say we have a traditional painter and somebody wants to explore the Navajo silversmithing realm. We have this overall general dialogue that's going to take place of art history, fine arts, and cultural arts as it dialogues with Navajo silversmithing. And it just makes their repertoire and their toolkit even more strengthened by the combination of these areas. Additionally, it will provide to the students basic technical and cultural skills to pursue self-sufficient economic endeavors. And so that's also something that people may be interested in. So perhaps you're going into a public health major, but you want to explore this possibility of running your own business. And so and then perhaps you don't want to see it necessarily directly dialogued with your major, but it does provide you with skills that you can utilize to create your own business on the side. And finally, and this is most important because it dialogues directly with our Diné College strategic goals, it allows for Diné College students to reconnect, right, with their own family's history and the larger Navajo cultural lived experiences that we have. So what we're asking for you, once again, like we did last week, is for feedback. We need community feedback so that we can continue on with the course development, program development. And there's several ways that you can leave that feedback. First is through a survey. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I link that below, SurveyMonkey, that you can access a survey to provide us feedback to let us know, what community needs, and if Navajo Silversmithing Minor would help to contribute to meet some of the needs of our Navajo people, as well as a space and an opportunity for open comments, right? Anything that you may think as critical feedback. And, we want the good, we want the bad, we want the clean, we want the dirty, anything that you can foresee that would help us to foresee issues or to highlight strengths. We want that kind of feedback so that we can provide that to our Board of Regents as well. You can also email if you want a paper copy. You can shoot me an email. Here's my email right there. Or you can email our NCAP email, ncap@dinecollege.edu, to provide that feedback or to get a paper survey to fill out that you can email back to us. And then, of course, there's a phone that you can call. This extension brings you to Crystal Littleben. If, for example, you have community members who are just listening and they don't have access to the internet and they want to call in and take the survey via phone, you can reach us at 928-724-6878. And so that's what we're asking for, is if you guys can review some of the information. I will also put out flyers that has a recap of the course requirements, obviously, and ways in which you can contact us. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I know it's the first day of classes, so everybody's very, very busy, but thank you for taking some time to join us today. And of course, just as a recap, last week we discussed the Native American Studies minor. Today we went over briefly the Navajo Silversmithing minor. Next Monday, even though it's Martin Luther King Day, we're going to continue our minor Mondays and discuss our Navajo weaving. So make sure that you join us via this Zoom room or our Diné College live Facebook feed. And then the last week we'll be discussing our Navajo cultural arts minor. So I wanted to once again thank everybody for joining us today. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us. Once again, my name is Christine Ami, and I am an associate professor in the School of Business and Social Sciences. You guys have a great Monday and a wonderful spring semester. Bye, you guys.